Well, we definitely want to get into our next topic, and that is Tesla going to 10K. Part of this, when you look at Tesla, all right, and
the bear case, Tesla only goes to 10K.
Yeah, right, the bear case. We're going to use the 10K number. We may have to move that to 100K or maybe higher. Yeah. We'll see. But let's play with this. I was a Tesla bear at one time. About 5 years ago, I got a chance to drive the Model S. It was going to be, I've driven Mercedes and BMW all my life, and all my professional life when I could actually afford a car like that. And I went out and drove the Model S 5 years ago. So 2015 really was the year that I was driving the Model S. And at that time, I was like, I'm just not, this doesn't do it for me. The car is just not there yet. And it had some autopilot capabilities at that time. Obviously, full self-driving wasn't even in play. But really moving on to where I am now, and just this last year, I purchased a Model Y, and I've been completely conformed. Or I've seen the light, so to speak. So I want to hear your case on, and I've looked at some of your videos around the Robotaxi potential and really what that means for Tesla, because that's a big, big play. Potentially, it's the bigger play. Talk to me about that and how Tesla can actually move to an unreal valuation.
Sure. So there's I have two different basic models. So since you brought it up, we'll do the other model relates to batteries.
Okay.
But let's start with the Robotaxi model. It's really simple. This is actually really, really simple numbers. If you watch the Autonomy Day presentation, Elon said, sort of as a side note, we're going to have a Tesla-owned Robotaxi fleet of 10 million vehicles.
Okay.
And he also, not at the same time, he said each Robotaxi will make $30,000 in profit a year. Okay. And I think that was $30,000 in profit for individuals who own the vehicle and run it as a Robotaxi, not the Tesla-owned Robotaxi fleet. But let's go with these numbers. You've got 10 million vehicles making $30,000 in profit a year. I want to be clear. I think these are both understatements of where it's going. Okay, but 10 million vehicles making $30,000 in profit a year is $300 billion in profit a year. Now, call that 2030. Let's say we're in the year 2030. And let's say you have a price-earnings ratio of 30, which is massively low compared to a company that's growing as fast.
Yeah, innovation,
and we're leaving out all revenue from Tesla, all profits from Tesla Energy. We're leaving out all profits from selling cars. It's just, and they're supposedly at this point making 20 million vehicles a year, right? A price-earnings ratio of 30, that's a $9 trillion market cap. It's a $9,000 share price without everything else.
Yeah.
Just that is a $9 trillion market cap and a $9,000 share price.
Right.
What would you pay today for a stock that's going to be worth $9,000 9 years from now? You would pay $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for a stock, and it's trading around $700 a share.
Yep. Yep.
And I think that is an understatement of the Robotaxi model, and it leaves out the battery revenue model, and it leaves out Tesla Energy, and it leaves out Dojo as a service. There's so much potential in Tesla for revenue.
Yeah, for sure. I did an analysis video on this very topic, but I was going more towards the delivery fleet as an opportunity because of the number of transactions that are occurred. We cover the restaurant space a lot and restaurant technology on our networks. And even with that one, which was a very conservative number, we were looking at about 100 billion a year in additional revenue, just basically, additional revenue beyond what they had, because obviously with a Robotaxi fleet, the vehicle, unless there's demand, and that is going to be interesting if we do replace Uber and all the different ride-hailing platforms out there with, say, a Tesla network, to get to that point, what is the capacity of what transportation is and how will that work? All those kinds of things, I definitely would agree to a certain extent with that. If you have capacity of dealing with it. If you just look at the Uber model and what their capacity is right now, they're still only a very small market share. And that's mainly due to cost. Your theory is that Tesla gets down to, I think you had mentioned, around 10 cents a mile in terms of raw cost of what it's going to cost to basically operate the vehicle.
Cost per mile.
Cost per mile, 10 cents per mile, which would be absolutely destroy the marketplace in terms of ride hailing, because Uber's up in the $2 plus range.
So let me be clear about this. First of all, before I say this, I want to disclose, number one, I own a ridiculous amount of Tesla stock it's roughly 85% of my retirement portfolio is Tesla stock.
Okay.
And number two, I said I've only done one options transaction. I bought 2-year puts on Uber and Lyft. So when I say this, be aware, I make a lot of money if I'm correct about Uber and Lyft.
Yeah.
If people believe me and Uber and Lyft go down, then my option value goes up. I'm not planning on selling them. This is more like it's not a big position, but it's, I have a position and I have to disclose that. I believe that, so the Uber and Lyft, the size of the market for Uber and Lyft is very limited because the rough cost to the user is around $2.50 a mile. And I want to be clear about this too. I like Uber and Lyft. I think Uber and Lyft have made the world a better place. I think they have saved lives. They have reduced drunk driving deaths. I think that I've used it. I love it. I just recently rode Uber and Lyft when I was in New York City. I think both of them. So I am fans of the companies. I think they've done a good thing. I just don't think their business model survives. And the 10 cents a mile that I was talking about was the cost of operating, of the owner's cost per mile for the 2023 Tesla Compact that has not been fully revealed yet. The price per mile for the Tesla Robotaxi network, I think when it first comes out, will probably be in the ballpark of $1.50 a mile, which will significantly undercut Uber and Lyft. I think it pretty quickly gets down to $1 a mile. And there's this threshold when it gets down to around a price of around 70 cents a mile or 60 cents a mile. When it gets that low in price, the average American spends around 60 or 70 cents a mile on their own car that they own. And if you can get the price of a robotaxi ride consistently below the cost of ownership of the vehicle, you're going to start getting people to say, I don't want to bother owning a car anymore. I would rather ride on a robotaxi. And that's when the size of the market just scales like unbelievably. It reduces the profit per mile of the vehicle, right? Because you've lowered the price.
The volume goes up.
But the volume goes up insane. And, so you go to $1.50 a mile, maybe you double the volume compared to Uber and Lyft, but you go to 70 cents a mile and you 50x the volume.
Right.
That's where the real money is in terms of, and that's where it's not 10 million vehicle fleet, it's a 50 million vehicle fleet.
Right. Yeah. And if there is a company that can get to it, that, when you look at what is happening with Tesla across the world right now, and also Elon's plan to build more gigafactories, that's going to be the limiting factor, so to speak, of whether or not they can get enough batteries on the ground. And by then, hopefully, the technology kind of moves in that direction.
Can I just address the battery point? Because you've mentioned this a couple times, the challenge of batteries. So batteries are absolutely a challenge for other companies. And this is the other model that I've been talking about with people that takes away from the Robotaxi model for a second is, look, Elon and Drew Baglino and Tesla have said, this was in the slide deck, so this is like the whole company's. But there's one thing when Elon says something, you can say, oh, that's Elon time. Elon's just being overly optimistic. Right. But the whole company's on board with this mission. We're going to deliver 100 gigawatt hours of batteries produced in 2022, and we're going to deliver 3 terawatt hours of batteries produced in 2030. And that's supplemental to the batteries that are supplied by our partners, CATL, LG Chem, and Panasonic. So whenever I hear a bear say, there's a limit on how much Tesla can grow, and they're already overpriced or something. I just asked this simple question: how many batteries do you think Tesla will make in 2022, and how many will they buy from suppliers? And what's their total battery supply in 2022? Step one. So they said 100 gigawatt hours. They said that's supplemental to their suppliers. So I would say they're going to do 250 gigawatt hours in 2022, but let's say it's 200 gigawatt hours. And now the next question is, what happens to those batteries? Well, they go in products and they sell the products. So you take from that, how much revenue do they earn per kilowatt hour on the batteries that they produce and buy from suppliers? And the ballpark number I come up with is around $600 a kilowatt hour. And that's because and the simple way of thinking about that is, and my models are always oversimplified. So the simple way of thinking about this, imagine a $30,000 Tesla Model 3 with a 50 kilowatt hour pack. The reality is it's a $36,000 Tesla Model 3 with a 54 kilowatt hour pack. So I'm actually undercutting the dollars per kilowatt hour. But that is sort of a rough, you can do the same thing with Model Y. I've gone through all the products they produce, and it's a good ballpark figure that it's $600 a kilowatt hour for their products, the revenue that they make when they have the batteries. So if you do 200 gigawatt hours of batteries, at $600 a kilowatt hour, you get $120 billion in revenue in 2022, up from about $30 billion in revenue in 2020, or a 4x in 2 years increase in revenue. And you go out to 2030 and the numbers are and I think the dollars per kilowatt hour in terms of revenue will come down as you go out to 2030. And there's sort of a mix here because and by the way, Megapack, the Tesla grid storage product, that is significantly less. And that will be a large part of the 2030 story. And that is significantly less than the $600 a kilowatt hour revenue number. But solar roof and solar panels don't have kilowatt hours. There's no batteries in them. So those are just total bonus revenue on top of the kilowatt hour. So they're sort of offsetting things. But if you go out to 2030 and you figure a total of 6 terawatt hours and you drop it down to $500 a kilowatt hour in revenue, you're at $3 trillion in revenue. And that's not including Robotaxi revenue.
Right.
So you got $3 trillion revenue on one side. And the margins on energy, this is actually a model I haven't gone public with yet. I'm still working out the numbers. The margins on Tesla Energy, and we could talk, I don't know if you want to go there yet. The margins on Tesla Energy are insane. The margins on Megapack and Powerwall are absolutely insane.
Well, yeah, Powerwall is already showing to be a very interesting, but again, you're dealing back with a limitation on, currently, at least right now, on a limitation of being able to get to those units at any type of scale. Where do you think this occurs in terms of the scaling to that? Because I know Elon had talked a lot about this on Battery Day of what this is going to look like in 8, 9, 10 years by 2030. Do you feel that by 2025 we're going to see significant numbers? What is the number right now in your model that 2025 would be in terms of total sales by Tesla in terms of cars by 25?
2025. I don't really focus on. I tend to focus on 2022 and 2030, but I believe I have models that project out, and I think I'm probably somewhere around 5 or 6 million vehicles a year in 2025.
Okay.
And that's allowing for a large increase in Powerwall and Megapack storage products in 20. In other words, if they go all vehicles, it's a much bigger number.
Right.
But I think that what you're going to see is, and let me be clear. Let me talk through where I think it could go in 2025 if they do go all in on vehicles. Okay. If you watched the Elon interview with Sandy Munro, there was this conversation about the future of manufacturing for Tesla. And the current generation of manufacturing with the Model Y in Fremont and Shanghai is they have these casting machines that cast the rear section of the vehicle basically in one piece, which saves 300 robots, and it saves a whole bunch of parts, and it saves a whole bunch of work, and it makes it much more efficient. And the next generation that they're just starting to do in Giga Texas, the Gigafactory in Austin, Texas, and the Gigafactory in Berlin is they do full castings of the front and the rear section, and they add a structural battery pack, which has a whole bunch of advantages.
Right.
So that's the generation of factory that they're working on now that will be online third quarter, maybe fourth quarter this year, that will be spitting out vehicles at a much higher volume. But Elon and Sandy talked about the generation of factories after that. So after Berlin and Austin, we're going to see a whole new generation of factories. And my prediction, this is for that 2023 compact that they hinted at Battery Day. People call it the Model 2, and I hate that. I think Elon doesn't like it either. The Model 2 is confusing. Just call it the 2023 Tesla compact. Might even not be a compact, but I'm calling it the 2023 compact. That's going to be whole frame casting. Instead of casting the front section and the rear section and putting a structural battery pack in the middle, you cast the whole thing and put the structural battery pack inside of it. And you go to 48-volt wiring.
Huge benefit right there.
And what you're going to see is, so that the Berlin and Texas gigafactories, the Fremont and Shanghai are probably going to reach 750,000 vehicles a year production. Berlin, the current factories they're building in Berlin and Texas are probably going to reach 2 million vehicles a year in productivity.
Model 3 Ys.
The next, well, the Model Ys and the Model Y
and
maybe Cybertruck, whatever, you're probably talking to, but the next generation factory, the one that's coming after that, I think those might do 4 million vehicles a year, 5 million vehicles a year each. And so
you're saying that could land somewhere around 2023, 2024.
I think that it ramps. It starts in 2023, it ramps in 2024, and in 2025 it's going full bore. And if you have one of those in China and one of those in the United States and one of those in Europe, this is the crazy beyond Warren bull scenario that I haven't modeled yet. Okay, this is the oh my God, I can't believe he's going there. If you have 3 of these factories, one on each continent, producing 4 or 5 million vehicles a year, let's say it's 4 million vehicles a year each. Now you've got 2025, you've got 12 million vehicles plus the existing factories producing, let's say, another 5 million vehicles.
Right.
And you're up over 15 million vehicles a year. That's the crazy. And I think part of this, just to be clear about the battery problem, is I think that the 2023 Tesla Compact will have a smaller battery pack with lithium iron phosphate cells where you don't have to worry about acquiring nickel. And because they said it's going to use lithium iron phosphate cells. They're less expensive. There's an endless supply of iron. The iron is less expensive. So I think that could be a scenario where CATL scales and produces these 4680 versions of these cells in incredible volumes. CATL makes an insane amount of money supplying the cells to these, but maybe they're 30 kilowatt hour packs.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't need 50 kilowatt hours because they're so hyper efficient.
Yeah,
And so there's a scenario there, which I haven't modeled this scenario. I'm just saying, when you ask me how many vehicles could they produce in 2025, tell me where I'm wrong on this idea. I'm not saying it will happen. I'm just saying, if you want to get overly optimistic, you could say they could do 15 million vehicles in 2025 if they set their minds to it. If CATL can scale the batteries. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The scaling the batteries. And I think that the timing, to me, is really where it's all at in terms of productivity and scaling of what the battery supply is going to be, because everybody's, kind of vying for that potential 2 or 3 year growth, depending on the factories. And really, Tesla is the only player in town that has the capacity to reach those kinds of numbers. Let me ask you about this with the Model S and the Model X. And this is something I've looked at when the S did a refresh this year, just recently, along with the X. I was kind of taken back by that, because I felt like, why did Tesla do that and not just wait for the full structural pack to be able to be utilized? Because I'm assuming that Tesla's going to look at the full structural pack by the end of this year, early next year, and be able to just blow that car up in terms of a design theme. Maybe the 2022 Tesla Model S really, and I think they probably at some point stop making the X, because the Y is just right neck and neck with that car. What are your thoughts on that? Why do this, what seems to be an interim fix to the Model S lineup?
Sure. So the answer to that is actually pretty straightforward. Panasonic is making 2170 and 1865 or 18650 cells in Nevada, and they built these lines, and they're producing batteries that are good batteries.
Yeah.
And you have to use them somewhere.
Yeah.
And the Model S is designed to use, and the Model X are designed to use 1865 cells. And something happened where they radically improved those batteries. Just a really good example is look at the Model S long range before the refresh and after.
Yeah.
300 pounds lighter.
Yeah, it's a big difference in the car.
This isn't a tiny refresh. 300 pounds lighter. How? And they did that without structural pack. This is one of those things where I talk with people in the Tesla fan community. Here's the question I have. How much weight will the Berlin and Texas Model Y drop when it goes to front and rear castings and structural battery pack? And I think it's going to drop more than 500 pounds of weight.
Yeah.
Because it's going to go from 2170 cells to 4680 cells, which are going to be more efficient, more energy dense. It's going to go from front and rear, from rear casting to front and rear casting. It's going to go to structural battery. I think a lot of people don't get structural battery pack. The amount of weight savings of that. So I think the Model Y, the initial Model Y that comes out of Berlin and Texas, they're going to price that high. The first version that comes out is going to be a performance Model Y, and it's going to be mind-blowing. And they can't tell anybody. They can't tell anybody how good the new Model Y is going to be, because if they told anyone, then no one would buy. No one would buy. Well, there's always going to be people who need a car now, and it's probably half the market is like, look, my lease is up, I need a car. Model Y is already the best car in the world, according to Dan Neal, the Wall Street Journal. So there are people who buy it. But I think, and they will price the Berlin and Texas Model Y before they fully ramp. They will price it high, but it's going to be a knockout. It is going to be so good. I don't know if you followed when he was talking with Sandy Monroe about the polar moment of polar moment of inertia. It's going to corner. The weight is all at the center of the vehicle, which, like a skater, if their arms are out, they turn slow. If their arms are in, they turn fast. There's so many things about structural pack, about the way they're building this car. This thing is going to be stunning. Yeah. And it's coming third, fourth quarter this year, and they have to price it high so they can still sell the other cars, right? It's just going to get to this point. And once they scale production, when Berlin and Texas scale, they're producing 2 million of these a year, you won't be able to sell another car. No one is, once people see what these things are like, no one's going to buy another car. It'd be like buying a sled. Right? It's like
it's going to be different. That's for sure. I mean, I feel that way today. I flipped over from a Mercedes model GLS and went right to a Model Y, or GLE, and went right to the Model Y. And I'm still kind of kicking myself in the pants every time I drive that Model Y of why did I take so long? But I was waiting for a Model Y because I needed the room, and versus the Model 3. Even though I love the Model 3, I think it's still just an absolute fantastic car. All right, so let's go into
what I'm telling you is when the Berlin and Texas Model Y come out and automotive journalists get to drive it, they're
revolutionizing.
They're going to cry. They're literally going to cry. Think about how Dan Neal wrote up the Model Y in the Wall Street Journal as the best car in the world. When Dan Neal drives the Texas Model Y, when the German auto journalists, when Top Gear, when they drive the Berlin, they're going to cry. They will be so compelling. I'm like you can tell I'm a crazy Tesla bull, but it's going to drop 500 pounds of weight. It's going to move the weight to the center of the vehicle. It's going to have the 4680 cell, so it's going to have higher discharge rate, which means it can accelerate faster because it's able to deliver more energy to the wheels. This thing is going to knock it, and they're sandbagging it. They can't tell anyone how good it's going to be because they would kill their current sales.
Yeah, kill the existing market, for sure. Well, and I think there's that innovation issue with Tesla right now that everybody's facing, because even when you look at what's just the small limited refreshments that are improvements that the Model Y currently, and I bought mine in October, and already, you're starting to see improvements in the Model Y, and that's always going to be the case. I want to talk about software, because that's something that I'm continuously amazed by, including a range bump. So with the capacity of just efficiencies getting better and better with software improvements on these cars, I mean, right now, they're the only car manufacturer in the world that is adding range to your vehicle over the air. So that in itself, how far do you think?
Wasn't there one time they improved the braking? Like you got an over-the-air update, and all of a sudden your car braked better? Like, who does that?
It's amazing some of the things that, and then there's always the fun little things. But I'm more interested in these efficiency elements that are continuously going. I'm just kind of wondering how far and how fast this software can go. I've listened to Sandy Munro talk about how far ahead they are in terms of chip manufacturing and also in terms of software. What are your thoughts in terms of the software being the differentiator for Tesla in the future?
Well, I think it's one of many differentiators, and I think maybe you're referring to the over-the-air updates. There's a whole bunch of things going in there, but
and the new version, we're waiting on the new update, which is going to basically be the entire new refresh. I can't remember which version it is.
You mean FSD beta?
No, not FSD. It's a new operating system for the car that right now we're on 40. But it's a new update that's going to basically be a version jump. And that's what I'm really interested in, because Elon had been promising it at the beginning of this year. Hasn't occurred yet. Everybody's been looking for it. But I'm just kind of curious, when you look at the software capacity of what Tesla's engineers are doing, that's a big differentiator. The question is can they really move the needle between now and the time when the battery technology becomes more efficient to actually make these cars more efficient? They're doing it on all fronts. It seems like batteries, manufacturing prowess, and also software. Your thoughts on that?
So I guess there's different software issues. There's the software for the in-car experience, though, that you can play games in the car. There's software for making the car, how the car operates, which a lot of that is FSD, and a lot of that is the efficiencies of, using the car drives more efficiently, gets more range, uses more regen, corners better. I think all of that is improving in every way, and they're way ahead of everyone else. And I guess I would say you're sort of triggering something in me that I would hit on, which is I feel like all the other car companies are trying to make they're trying to catch up to the 2018 Model 3. Mm-hmm. And what any car company should do with software, hardware, with everything is they should look at what did Elon say in the Sandy Munro interview that they're going to do for 2023, and let's try to do that. Yeah. Let's stop trying, because if you're able to deliver a 2018 Model 3 in 2023, well, you're 5 years behind and Tesla's accelerated. You're going to be 10 years behind in a couple of years. So, but software specific, I think they're just, to me, I think they're improving the software. It's getting better. I don't think that's the revolutionary change. That there's big changes in there, it's important. The revolutionary changes are manufacturing and FSD.
Manufacturing, yeah, for sure.